Home affordability is a top concern for Canadians today as they view the crowning achievement of owning a home as a distant possibility now and into the future, according to an August 2024 poll commissioned by Habitat for Humanity Canada and Ledger. It revealed that 70% of aspiring home buyers believe that the reality of owning a home is quickly slipping out of their grasp and becoming impossible. Furthermore, according to Statistics Canada and the 2024 Social Survey, it found that nearly half of Canadians, at 45%, were concerned about housing affordability because of the rising costs. The concern was even higher among younger adults aged 20 to 35 at 59%, who were concerned about housing affordability, and it was their main trepidation to moving forward to putting their dream of owning a home into reality. Pedro Barata is the president and CEO of Habitat for Humanity Canada, and the issue of home affordability remains high on his priority list every day that he interacts with Canadians. He's concerned with making sure that home ownership moves from an aspiration to a secure certainty. For my friends over at Habitat Canada, the mission is simple. It's to build homes, community, and hope. Because, you see, everyone in the eyes of Habitat for Humanity Canada deserves a decent, affordable, and safe place to call home. And Barata joined me this week to discuss the continuing efforts of the organization to make sure that home ownership and affordability is attainable and that prosperity is promised to everyone who wants to own their own home. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. Pedro, if you're ready, I'll take a moment to welcome you to the program. And I'm super excited to learn about all of the great work that you're doing to uplift home affordability and making sure that all Canadians of all abilities have a safe, decent, and affordable place to call home, my friend. It's great to see you, and happy Tuesday to you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be. It's a pleasure to be here. And I know that you've spoken with my colleague Amy Dunham, actually, from Habitat for Humanity International recently. So we are actually part of Habitat International. There are 60 countries around the world where Habitat operates. And we all share the same vision, which is that a world where everyone has a safe, decent place to live. And the way that we do that is we bring home ownership within reach for more families, especially families with low to moderate incomes who otherwise would be shut out of the housing market. And we know that, housing is a lever, and it creates ripple effects of all kinds for positive change, like better health, stronger educational outcomes, better financial security. And I look forward to having this conversation and talking about that a little bit more. So it's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. Pedro, I want to dive right in and talk specifically about the work that we're doing here in Canada to make sure that everyone has a safe, decent, and affordable place to live. Because I know that we'll talk about housing affordability in just a second, but I wanted to start our conversation by giving you the floor to tell me about the impact that Habitat for Humanity is specifically having here in Canada, my friend. What do you think people need to know?
Yeah, so right now about 8,500 people are living in habitat homes across Canada, in every province and territory. And there's of course the impact that goes into building homes. But that affordable home ownership model is really important. Habitat for Humanity is the only national non-market organization focused on affordable home ownership, because we know that that's a gateway to opportunity, stability, and prosperity. So the benefits for a habitat homeowner, which are quite unique in terms of the work that we do, is that you can escape unaffordable rental, and you can gain stability, you can gain equity, and that builds independence, and it also builds more opportunities for your children in terms of intergenerational equity. So we've tracked the economic and social outcomes that come with that affordable home ownership, and the results are profound. One of the results of home ownership that really stuck out for me, Kevin, came out of a study that we did with Deloitte that looked at the earnings of habitat homeowners since they became homeowners, and then compare that to renters based on the CMHC renter survey, renters in the same circumstances, right, with the same family size, and looked at over time what is the difference between having a home that you own versus renting. And the earnings difference is almost 30%. That's the bump that you get as a result of having access to affordable home ownership, which doesn't mean that home ownership is better than renting. We need all kinds of options, right? We need choice for families so that they can make decisions based on what they want and what they value. But the results are clear. Affordable home ownership really gives you the stability that you need to invest in, your peace of mind, your training, your career, and give you that 30% bump in earnings over time.
Yeah, absolutely. And Pedro, as you know, since 1985, Habitat for Humanity Canada has assisted more than 5,000 families in their dream of in their dream of owning a home. And as you know, in Winkler, Manitoba, was the first Habitat for Humanity home that was built. And I'm curious if you could take a broad look on the scope of the impact that that Habitat has had on creating a sense of dignity and honor for homeowners across Canada. What do you want people to know about how Habitat has really provided a sense of both emotional, financial, and psychological security, my friend? What do you want people to know?
Yeah, so I mean, we've talked about the economic benefits, and that's a really important facet of the value of home ownership. But there are many other positive impacts, as you've mentioned. In the same survey that we did just this year with Deloitte, we found that social and health benefits are also really, really important, and that Habitat homeowners report that since they became homeowners, 73% report better physical health, and a lot of that is actually just like increased access to a family doctor. Also, 79% report improved mental health, which is not a surprise. A lot of Habitat families come from homes that don't really fit their needs in terms of the size of the home, the number of bedrooms, never mind the affordability component. Habitat homeowners pay no more than 30% of their income towards a mortgage at the same time that they're building equity. And almost in every case, Habitat families are coming from rental circumstances where they are paying way more than 30%, and really stressing out their budgets and, of course, their mental health. We also see that once your economic and your health situation stabilizes, you just have more space, you have more room, and 50% of Habitat homeowners, half, report that they are now doing more community work and participating in more community events than they were able to do in the past. The same number, half, are saying that their kids are much more stable and doing better in school as a result. And there's all of that. It just comes with just a sense of stability and being anchored in a community where you can really put down your roots. We also looked at, and that's great for families. It's great for communities. We also looked at the economic impact and the economic contributions that Habitat families make to the economy as a result of just having better jobs, having more time to invest in their jobs and getting better earnings. And we know that our affordable homeownership program, it invests about $35 million annually into the Canadian economy. So that's a real contribution, not just to the individual families, but to all of us. So that's really, really key. And the last thing, Kevin, I wanted to mention is that there's two kinds of equity that is really important for us in Habitat affordable homeownership. One, of course, is the financial equity that you build as a result of investing in a mortgage and having that return to you in terms of your capital. But there's a different equity, which is ensuring that no one gets left behind, and ensuring that we're lowering barriers to home ownership by groups that face disproportionate barriers in terms of access. So we put a real focus on women-led single-parent households. In fact, but I think the number is 43% of Habitat homes are women-led single-parent households. We also invest in Black families, Indigenous families, families with disabilities needing accessible homes, and newcomers to Canada. And we want our homes to fast-track equity in terms of groups that are facing disproportionate barriers. And so we put a real onus on holding ourselves accountable to make sure that we're serving populations that are most likely to be left behind and to be left out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know, Pedro, that we all as a Habitat family have worked to address the homeowner affordability crisis. And as you know, the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation says that Canada needs to build an additional 3.5 million homes by 2030 to restore housing affordability across the country, my friend. So I'm curious to dive into home affordability and your thoughts on the urgency of the matter and what you want people to know, my friend.
Yeah, that's a big, scary number. Like 3.5 million homes by 2030. 2030 is literally just around the corner, and that is a daunting task. And I guess the one of the things that I think is really important to just keep in mind as we move forward and as we stare at this daunting goal is to be bold and to not pretend or fool ourselves that we're going to get there with sort of like magic bullets. There's no one solution to the housing crisis. There's no one kind of housing that is going to respond to the dynamic, multiple needs of people in Canada who are in such different circumstances at different stages in their life cycle. And there's no one solution, whether that's supportive housing or a housing first model or co-ops or a nonprofit rental or a market rental or an affordable homeownership unit or a market homeownership solution. We need all of those. And I think one of the things that we have missed in our attempts so far to close the gap between the $3.5 million homes and where we are now is that we tend to pick just parts of the ecosystem and lean into those. But every time we do that, it's like we're pushing one lever, but all of the other ones are standing still. And we need to push all of this at the same time. Be bold, be ambitious, and have all the solutions that meet the needs of Canadians. And I say that partly because home ownership has really not received, and affordable home ownership has really not received the focus that Canadians are clamoring for. When you ask, especially young people, if the dream of home ownership remains part of what they want to achieve, the vast majority of young people say, "Yeah, I really want that," but it feels like so far away from what I'm able to do, right? And so we have to address that, and we have to make sure that dream of affordable homeownership remains alive for young people who now see it increasingly as a luxury. Buying a home is a luxury. So this is all happening at the same time that rents are growing across Canada, and where the gap between home prices and incomes just continues to widen. So there's actually been no other country in the G7 that has experienced such a severe decline in housing affordability as Canada. We're seeing, a little bit of change in terms of home prices and a little bit of a shrinking of the gap between income and housing prices. We're seeing rents come down slightly, but let's get real. I mean, these are minor. These are like minor positive developments in what remains a very big challenge that we need to continue to address and lean into.
Yeah, and to add to your point, Pedro, the Canadian Real Estate Association, along with advocacy, reported that 40% of today's Canadians believe that the dream of home ownership is still alive, but despite the pessimism, my friend, more than two-thirds of non-homeowners still aspire to own their own home. So you had mentioned before the idea of being bold, my friend. So I'm curious not only to ask you what you think of those statistics, but how do you define being bold as we work to address this concern, my friend?
Yeah, that was that survey. That advocacy survey was excellent. There was some numbers in that survey that were actually quite telling about where we're at as well. That didn't get as much attention, which were about how young people are ready to quote unquote compromise on stuff. Right, that normally people aspire to get in a new home, like the marble counters and a big house, and what that survey revealed is that exactly as you said, young people see that housing, especially home ownership, is increasingly out of reach. They still see it as a really important anchor in terms of building their financial future and building a family. And young people reported in the advocacy survey that they're ready. They're ready to go with a simpler home, a simpler starter home, smaller, right? But just something that gets their foot in the door, right, and that they can build on, because they understand that owning a home is really important in terms of building your own future, but also tying it to the challenge that we're facing around a growing wealth gap in Canada. And we did our own survey that also asked Canadians how they were feeling about home ownership. And that connection between the kind of society that we want to build and the role of home ownership really came together. We don't talk about it as much as in the recent past, about the fact that Canada still has a really significant income gap that's growing, and also a really significant wealth gap that's growing. And it's increasingly an intergenerational gap, right? Where, older Canadians are doing better than previous older Canadians in previous generations, and younger Canadians are falling behind compared to previous generations. And affordable home ownership is really at the center, it's at the heart of how we close that gap, because a lot of the wealth gap is driven by your home capital and your home equity. And if you don't have access to that capital, if you don't have access to that equity, if you can't get into the market, then guess what? You're going to be renting, hopefully some affordable rent, but you're not going to get the benefits that other generations of younger Canadians had in the past that allow them to start to build their future, right? Early on in their career, start to build their family, have children, and start to really start to invest in the economy and general productivity. So all of these things are really, really key. One of the things that we have to face up to is that Canada is about to experience the biggest intergenerational wealth transfer that we've ever seen, and that's just because of demographics being what they are. The boomer generation is reaching, the next stage of their lives in terms of retirement, and there's going to be a lot of transfer from, the boomer generation to, to their kids. And the one of the real dangers that we have to mitigate is that if we just allow things to continue to unfold as they are, guess what? If your parents have, a lot of capital, a lot of equity, they're going to transfer it to you. If your parents don't have that, they're not going to transfer it to you, and you're going to be further left behind. So we actually have an opportunity to look at how is it that in this context, where we know that there's going to be the possibility for really ratcheting up a growing gap in wealth in this country, how is it that we can look at home ownership and affordable home ownership as a way to close that gap and to make sure that we prepare to ensure that everybody gets a chance?
Yeah, absolutely. And Pedro, can I also ask you about, the lack of trained people going into home construction and the challenges in the home construction industry that have also contributed to this crisis that we're in, my friend? What are your thoughts on how we incentivize people to enter into the field of home construction so that both the labor and home shortage gap can be shrunk, my friend? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, we've all seen the stats, right? It's the exact same. Yeah, it's the exact same issue as the demographic shift that's happening with the wealth transfer. We also have a workforce that's aging within construction, and that's going to age out, and we're not replacing that workforce quickly enough. If especially No, we're not replacing it to just keep up with the current workforce. Never mind if we're going to reach for that 3.5 million home target that you mentioned earlier. So it's really, really important that that we look at a number of strategies to address that gap. There's no one solution. Of course, we all need to present a career in the trades to young people as a viable, valuable option in terms of building like a really good career, a really good future. Not everybody needs a university degree. Lots of people do, but not everybody needs a university degree. And a career in trades is a way to make a really good income and to build a future. And to be part of a community that's doing really, really important things in terms of building the future of Canada. And there's so many pathways into that. I think one of the things that everybody's identified is that we need to reach young people earlier, right? In this sort of in their educational trajectory. We need to reach them when they're much younger, to talk about a career in the trades as a viable opportunity. And then we need to have, the training and the supports that are going to be required, to make sure that those who do want to choose that option have every opportunity to build a successful future. I think immigration is the other obvious pipeline into the trades. Our immigration system in Canada, traditionally and historically, has really focused on highly educated applicants.
Yeah.
With post-secondary education degrees, who have certain qualifications, and yeah, we need that for sure, and that's how we've built a great economy here in Canada, and we can't let up on that. But we've been slow to balance out sort of the call for PhDs with a call for tradespeople, right? Which we also need. And going out after the very best tradespeople around the world, inviting them to come to Canada, and not on a temporary basis, right? Not to separate people from their families and just give them a couple of years and they're out, but like to actually allow for the immigration system to bring in tradespeople, construction workers, not on a temporary basis but on a permanent basis, to build those 3.5 million homes. We gotta get a lot better at just saying yes to that idea and opening the doors to tradespeople. What we're doing in Habitat is, a relatively small but very important contribution to building the workforce of the future. Like, we build homes, right? And we have build sites, and so we're working with high schools, we're working with unions, we're working with colleges to actually make sure that our build sites become training opportunities, right? Like training sites for young people who are, just sort of like, kicking the tires on a potential career in the trades, just to see what it's like, get a first taste of what it's like to be on a construction site, and much bigger, to actually doing pre-apprenticeship training, working side by side with unions, and bringing in young people who are going to be the Red Seal carpenters of tomorrow, and each one of our construction sites, yeah, it's building a home, it's building an opportunity for a family who would otherwise be left out, but increasingly we're also using them as real life classrooms for the trades workforce of the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And my friend, as you know, I sit on the board of directors here in Windsor-Essex, my friend, and we're off to a great start. We've had a great year in our affiliate, from everything from buying our restore to starting our own diversity, equity, and inclusion committee. We've also participated in the Building Bridges Summit this year, and I'm curious to get your thoughts on all the great work happening in Windsor-Essex, because I know that affiliates from across the country come to our own backyard here in Windsor and Essex to show, to see how it's done on a successful and a somewhat national scale right here in Windsor. My friends, I wanted to give you a moment to talk to me about all the great work happening here in Windsor and Essex. My friend, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, you all are seem to be always on the cutting edge of sort of the coming trends around home building. So I give you lots of kudos, to you and the board, as well as Fiona and the team, who's just like just an incredible leader. And I was in Windsor just last month for the groundbreaking of 16 new units that are
Amherstburg, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So they're being built by a great partner of Habitat, Amico Design Build. They have a factory, an A-Links factory that is one of the leaders in Canada on modular homes. So like the homes are all being built like in a factory and being shipped out, and they're beautiful. I had a chance to tour them. they're like really, really well designed, and I think they're the kind of sort of entry level option that will provide an affordable option for a new family. So that's happening in Windsor, and everybody across Canada, not just at Habitat, but federal government is really leaning into new construction methods and modular. So we're all watching this partnership between Windsor and A-Links to see what it can teach the rest of us. And there's been a lot of building leading up to that. I think in Windsor there are about 140 Habitat homes that are currently housing families. I know that Windsor has also was one of the first or the very first in Canada to build a 3D home, which was also really, really cool in terms of experimenting with new technology. And I also know that Habitat in Windsor is a gateway for just community building. There are thousands of volunteers annually who contribute, tens of thousands of hours to build homes, strengthen families. And it's really, really inspiring to see how Habitat is at the heart of such a great community where, people really stick together and they see their future together. And they use, they leverage organizations like Habitat as a way to build inclusion. So kudos to all of you.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we just had our Christmas party last week, and there's still more work to do. And it is an exciting time to be a part of Habitat, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I'm just I think we've done incredible work to get us to this point where, we're at the center of so much of what community sees as the kind of future we want to build together. And we have ways for people to come and work with us, whether it's on build sites or whether it's, shopping at restores, which is really important as we go into the holiday season, or even volunteering at restores. And all of that just creates this momentum that I think as we head into 2026, there's additional energy from the federal government, right, to ramp up building of affordable housing. And I think we're in a perfect spot, working with our communities, to grab a hold of that opportunity with the federal, provincial, local governments, and take our building to the next level. We have to take our building to the next level. We're doing a really good job in terms of building homes every year, even through the pandemic and high interest rates and supply chain challenges. We're doing good, but we've got to push ourselves to go to the next level. And Kevin, I think 2026 is the year where we need to really go after it and think about just everything we can do over the next decade. It's time.
Yeah, absolutely. And Pedro, I also wanted to ask you about your homeowner affordability program, which benefits families living in low to moderate income, which enables them to really get a leg up in home ownership and really build a foundation for their future. But I also wanted to ask you about the importance of doing that for folks with disabilities. As you know, I have cerebral palsy, and one of the reasons I'm on the board is to bring an inclusive lens to the need to build more accessible homes. So talk to me about the affordable home ownership program that Habitat offers from a countrywide perspective, and also our commitment to inclusion as well. What are your thoughts there, my friend?
Yeah, so our home ownership program, there's really three facets that are really, really key in terms of creating that opportunity and lowering barriers to home ownership for families who otherwise would not be able to own a home. First, we substituted down payment with volunteer hour time. So we know that putting together a down payment can be very prohibitive, can take a very long time. And a lot of families just can't get there on their incomes, and so we substitute the down payment with usually about 500 hours of volunteer time. And that's, combination of, our construction builds, also our restores and work in community. So that's one. Secondly, we don't want anybody to pay more than 30% of their income toward their mortgage. If you pay more than 30% of your income towards your mortgage, it's going to start eating into other basics, and it's going to prevent you from having financial stability. In fact, that's the definition of core housing need, right? If you're paying more than 30% of your income toward rent, you're in core housing need. So the way we do that is we work with the family to negotiate mortgages that fit their income reality. And the third part of that is that when you own a home, you're not just paying rent, right? And that money is gone every month. When you own a home, you're putting money into equity that will come back to you, right, later when you sell that house, if you choose to sell that house, which is totally the option of the family. But you're creating that equity, and so that is really, really, really important. And so that's the basic model. And then, we put particular equity lenses on what additional supports do we need to provide for, Canadians in different circumstances, including families with disabilities that face, unique barriers to safe, affordable housing. So our affordable homeownership program, we design and build homes that meet accessibility needs. The homes are adapted to accommodate mobility challenges, including in pretty much all of our homes, features like wider doorways and hallways, accessible bathrooms and kitchens, and step-free entrances and ramps. So we build universal. We're building universal design. And even if the current homeowner doesn't need it, we build universal design knowing or betting that future families maybe will need that, right? And so, that's a retrofit that's not always easy to do. And so we just build it from the beginning so that as the home ages, as the home ownership changes hands, mobility and accessibility are always front and center in all of our homes.
Yeah, and specifically here in Canada, Pedro, I'm curious, how does Habitat Canada view its role as a national provider of hope and progress for deserving families? Because I know that that's a big driver of the work that Habitat does each and every day, isn't it?
Yeah, look, we're in every province, and we're in the north and the territories as well. We're a national organization, but really we're like a grassroots, bottom-up movement of home builders and community builders. We have boots on the ground. Local habitats are deeply embedded in their communities. So that in Windsor's experience. But Windsor and Toronto and Vancouver and Montreal, and I was just in Fredericton. People, everybody across those communities aspires to home ownership, but the realities on the ground are very different. And so, having that, having that local leadership and having that local drive really allows us to adapt and to serve, the real needs of families, and to not have a cookie cutter kind of approach, or not come in, sort of like top down. So that's also really, really key in terms of putting the deals together, right, to make housing happen. It's complicated, right? We have 3 levels of government that, on occasion, don't always work great together, right? Sometimes we need a little bit of navigation. Yeah, yes. And then, alongside with that, governments are never going to pay the full freight. So, having relationships with corporations, right, with donors, with organizations that provide us gifts in kind, like construction materials, having relationships with the local union or the local college or the local chamber of commerce. Those are really, really, really key in bringing the entire magic together of what it takes to do something really, really, really hard, which is to build a home and provide an affordable homeownership opportunity. It's almost like every time it happens, it's like that was like a miracle, right? And the only way you can do that is if you have all those relationships, that credibility, and that means you have to be on the ground and be a local leader.
Yeah, absolutely. And you brought up the federal government, so I'll skip to this. I know that Habitat Canada welcomed the federal government's recommitments to its budget to waive GST for new homes under $1 million for first-time home buyers, my friend. And I'm wondering your thoughts on the fact that it'll help Habitat build an additional 5 to 13 more homes for 100, my friend. So tell me about that new development and how you hope that the federal, provincial, and local governments will continue to be partners for Habitat, my friend. Tell me your thoughts there.
Yeah, I mean, building homes is increasingly expensive, and that's just the reality that we're facing. And every time we take on a project, we look at the building stack, meaning like how is it that you make the math work so that you get from $0 to $100% in terms of building that home that you need. And there are all kinds of components that go into that. Some of the components fill that bucket, right? Like federal funding, fundraising, restore sales, like all of those fill the bucket. And then there are other measures that make, that lower the size of the bucket that you have to fill, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so GST is one of those. So GST, of course, between the federal and provincial costs, it's a significant lift in terms of us finding the dollars to pay that cost. And so we worked really, really hard, and the federal government listened, and the Ontario government has also listened, and both of those levels of government have committed to eliminate the GST. That was featured in the last federal budget. It just now needs to be implemented. The provincial government has already committed on the record that as soon as the federal government scraps the GST, that they will follow suit. That's going to make a huge difference in terms of lowering costs and making sure that we can provide up to 10% more homes than we are now. So we're very much looking forward to that. It's a very important initiative, and symbolically really important as well, because if you go back to when the Carney government was first elected, getting rid of the GST was one of the very first announcements they made, the very first housing announcement made by this government. Now we just need to follow through. We need to be a little bit more patient, but we also just need to get it done.
Good things come to those who wait. Isn't that the truth?
Indeed, indeed.
Pedro, I'm curious to get your national perspective on the importance of restores because, as you mentioned, we're right in the middle of the holiday season, and the restore is really at the heartbeat of how Habitat creates their own supplemental and operational income, my friend, in order to build houses and to operate on a daily basis. So tell me about the importance of donating to a restore and why it's such an innovative business model in your view, my friend.
Yeah, I'm amazed by exactly. You call it an innovation, and that's what it is. It's a social enterprise. We have 100 restores across Canada, run by local habitats, and they directly support our mission, so that all the profits in terms of the sales support our operations and support home building, and just really help us keep our costs really, really low, and help us be really, really efficient. And that's key. There's another component around what restores do, which I think is like are really, really relevant in that we reduce waste, right, by reselling donated furniture, appliances, building materials. Like this is stuff that would have otherwise ended up in landfills. Instead, shoppers can buy new or gently used items at affordable prices. You pay little or no tax because it's a social enterprise. The inventory is always changing, so it's always, a fun shopping experience. Regular shoppers at restores are very common. And we also we help people just like get rid of stuff that otherwise would end up in landfill, as I mentioned. Even your kitchen, one of the most popular items that people like to give us and that people like to buy from us are kitchens, right? Like people are renovating their kitchen. What are they going to do with all of this stuff? Like donate it to a restore, and in turn we will make sure that it ends up in somebody's home at a price that they can afford. So it is holiday time, and everybody's looking for nice creative ideas for gifting. The beauty about shopping at Habitat is that you get to give a bunch of times. Not only are you buying a gift for your loved ones, you're also giving a gift to your community by really investing in the affordable housing crisis. So it's the way to give the most in some ways. So find a local restore and contribute to the cause. Oh, Kevin, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. I have three questions left for you, my friend. And the first of those three questions is this, and I know this is a common issue for all habitats across the country, and that, my friend, is the issue of securing land in order to build houses. Not only is building houses expensive, but also acquiring land can be put in that same category. So tell me about the importance of working together to secure land to buy and build houses or build houses that people can be safely housed in, because I know that's also an issue that near and dear to Habitat's heart. So I'm wondering the national perspective when it comes to land acquisition as well, my friend.
Yeah, and again, I mean, this is another one of those issues which is at the heart of whether we decide to build or not. And there are a number of approaches. The best land, Kevin, is free land. So so we actually we work very closely with local and regional governments to have access to free or very low cost land, and that is one of the biggest contributions that that local governments make in terms of their partnerships with Habitat, is to provide us with those parcels of land, whether they're infill or whatever, that we can ensure that public land retains a public benefit, which is long-term affordability. So that's really, really key. We really could not build without generosity of local, city, and regional governments in terms of that land. We also work with developers, developers who see the value of building mixed income communities, and who work with Habitat to give us good deals on parcels of their land, so that if they're developing, a bunch of acres, they will work with us to make a good deal on a slice of their overall development. That will ensure, of course, that they're providing community benefits. That often, by working with Habitat, maybe sort of the approvals process, which can linger on, sometimes can move a little bit faster. And also, Habitat actually provides tons of benefit, because like we bring a business model to the table where we're going to fill that land, right? We're going to fill that land, and we're going to generate value on it. So making those deals with developers is also really, really key. And there's an emerging issue which is really, really important. The federal government has now committed to really providing more access to Canada lands. through the Canada Lands Corporation. So federal land it is now going to be really focused and repurposed for affordable housing. And we've seen the first 6 examples of that rolling out in terms of announcements. And those lands are going to lead to affordable rental. And after that, there will be more land, more federal land in the pipeline that we hope to get our hands on as Habitat for Humanity so that we can leverage public land for public benefit, ensuring long-term affordable home ownership options for Canadians. So it's an exciting time. It's an exciting time, and we can't wait to see the federal government roll out more of those opportunities.
Yeah, and I know another priority for Habitat for Humanity Canada is supporting our Indigenous community. And I wanted to give you the space to tell me about the important work that you're doing for that community and how it informs the work that Habitat does on a daily basis. What are your thoughts there, my friend?
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you brought that up. It's the journey of reconciliation is so crucial, and we all have to bring our gifts to the table to figure out how we can contribute to that reconciliation journey. We in many locations across Canada, habitats live side by side with their neighbors and First Nations, and we see that in First Nations communities, Indigenous people are 4 times more likely to live in crowded housing, 6 times more likely to live in homes needing major repairs. Home ownership and new home ownership and repairs, which is increasingly part of what we do, is really, really key and something that, is one of our superpowers that we want to bring to the table in terms of the reconciliation journey. So we're a non-Indigenous organization, and it's very important that we say that because we have to approach these partnerships really on respect, with real emphasis on collaboration. We're learning so much about again how this can't be a cookie cutter approach in terms of the housing solutions that we build. That we got to gain cultural competence, and we have to promote a for Indigenous, by Indigenous approach, working very closely with Indigenous governments, with leaders, local partners, to deliver culturally appropriate, community-driven homes. And I'm seeing that happen all the time in especially places like Grey Bruce, places like Hamilton. Our affiliates have really invested the time to build relationships, to build trust, and to the point where now local habitats are the go-to repair partner, the go-to development partner with First Nations in their communities to build housing that makes the most sense for those communities. We're really proud of that. We're really proud of the outcomes, of course, and the fact that we're helping and supporting Indigenous-led solutions. But we're most proud by the fact that we're doing this in the right way, right? Which is to invest the time, to make it a priority, and to really make sure that we're growing in terms of our own understanding of our role, how we need to work differently, how we need to be responsive, and how this is work that, at the end of the day, is going to be good for everyone.
Yeah, and Pedro, my final question for you is, if I asked you to describe the forward-thinking and inclusive vision of Habitat for Humanity Canada, how do you think you would answer that question? And what would be your parting message for all the volunteers and the real heartbeat of Habitat for Humanity as we continue to work together to bring affordable housing to everybody? So what are your thoughts there, my friend?
I think it comes down to the simple concept, or the simple reality, that across this country, we're shovel ready. We have a pipeline of projects. We have existing land. We have existing money. And we have lots of relationships. and we have a pipeline of more than 1,000 homes ready to roll across Canada if we can get the right kind of financing support from the federal government. So we're at this real pivotal moment as the federal government has introduced Build Canada Homes, where we see that there's real alignment between the federal government's ambition to close the gap between the level of homes that we need and the reality that we're facing on the ground. We're really confident about our ability to be really strong, meaningful partners with the federal government to help close that gap. We're shovel ready so that we don't have to wait years to start to build. We can start to build momentum now in 2026, and that momentum will grow and scale so that 1,000 homes can become thousands more homes, because that's what Canadians need. We've spent 40 years building this movement across Canada. We have really strong organizations on the ground in places like Windsor, and we're ready to roll. We're ready to roll. We're ambitious in terms of what we want to achieve and how we want to grow it, and we're also really optimistic that this is a moment where we can make change happen, and change that brings everybody alongside with us. Because our ambition includes ensuring that every Canadian has a safe, decent place to live, and that means that we will continue to put the question of equity very much at the center of everything that we do. And I think that's what Canadians want, and that's why we have such incredible support across this country. So let's go make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And finally, my friend, tell me if people want to get involved with Habitat for Humanity Canada on a national or local level. What's the best way they can do that?
Well, you can find us on all your social channels, including our website, habitat.ca, where you can find out where your restore is in your local community, and where is it that you can go do some fun shopping that will help us build more. Also, where builds are happening, local builds that you can sign up for to volunteer in your community. And you can donate straight to our work, which is also a great way to help Habitat make sure that we have our savings kitty that we can take out so we can build more homes in 2026.
Absolutely. Well, my friend, no one will ever accuse you of lacking ambition and enthusiasm, okay?
Thanks so much for inviting me. This has been so much fun, and I look forward to seeing you again in Windsor in 2026.
Absolutely, my friend. I want to thank you for being here and for all the good work that you do across the country to make sure that people have a safe, decent, and affordable place to call home. And I want to thank you for engaging in conversation with me this afternoon. It's most appreciated.
Thank you for being a part of Habitat and supporting your local Habitat on the board. Awesome.